If you're a Zambian living in the diaspora and you are looking forward to conducting business in Zambia, this is definitely a video for you. I do know for a fact that one of the biggest challenges that people, Zambians in the diaspora face is the lack of trust. Trust is a huge issue. And I know you have a burning desire to plow back a lot of investments back in Zambia. But number one, you also do not really understand the market because probably a lot of you have been staying out of the country for a very long period of time, and market trends usually tend to shift, and this is one of the reasons why you could be very skeptical in terms of where you would start, what you would do, and how you would manage it, especially if there is a lack of trust. And this is one of the reasons why I am making this episode specifically for you. So, a brief introduction about me. Well, my name is Nalula, and I am the founder. And yeah, I do not really like throwing in those, cheesy titles: founder, CEO, director. So basically, I'm the owner of Z Corner. So Z Corner is a media platform that started, a couple of decades ago. We're probably going to be about, I don't know, maybe a decade and a half in the business, and we transitioned from media to the auto industry. So basically, let me also give you like a brief background. So I used to be in the diaspora. I used to study in Russia. I stayed there for about 12 years, and I came back to Zambia in 2022, right after the 2021, interesting elections. So I've been in Zambia for the past 3 years specifically, and I've been running a business from the ground up. Now, obviously, this is a dream of a lot of you guys. You want to come back to Zambia, but sometimes you feel like, okay, where do I begin? How do I do it? Who do I work with? And to be honest with you, I had these same insecurities. And for example, it took a long time for me to finally decide to come back to Zambia, but eventually I just, put on my big boy pants and I was able to come back and relocate to Zambia. So, my entrepreneurial journey as far as Zambia is concerned is a very, very interesting one, to say nothing but the least. And, we had to build from the ground up. So, that is a brief introduction of me and how I came back to Zambia and why I really feel like I'm the right person to talk to you directly, because I understand what you're going through. I understand your insecurities, and I also understand what is possible in Zambia. So, to answer your question, right? How would you make millions of dollars, starting a business in Zambia? You could be remotely, you could be based, in the diaspora and still conduct your businesses. We've seen people in, or rather the Zimbabwean diaspora actually do very well. They've been plowing back a lot of money. We've seen the Nigerian diaspora do very well. They could be based outside of the country, but they are still able to increase and participate in their GDP because they are doing stuff that really, really promote the growth of their economy. So, the number one thing that you need to understand about doing business in Zambia is you have to figure out the location. Of course, this is a no-brainer, right? Everybody knows that. And the reason why I say this is because when you are exposed to, the standards of living in a developed country, right? If you are in the diaspora, you've obviously got like a better perspective of what Zambia could be like if we did certain things. And this is one of the reasons why sometimes your ideas might not necessarily work in Zambia. For example, right now, AI is exploding in other countries, but AI isn't really going to do very well in Zambia, because if you start an AI business, first of all, half, or rather 70% of the population don't really have access to electricity, moreover, the internet. So your business is going to, it's really going to have like a very slow progressive rise, if I can put it that way. So this is one of the reasons why you have to do businesses that really work for the population. And when it comes to technology, right, we've seen different companies, or rather very few companies actually come through Zambia and just do very well. For example, I'm sure you have heard of Yango. Yango is actually a multi-billion dollar company based in Russia. It's Yandex, under the Yandex group. So when they came to Zambia, they absolutely disrupted the taxi business. Before Yango, we had Ulendo. So Ulendo was doing very well. It did very well in urban setups such as Lusaka, the Copper Belt, but they got really, really defeated by Yango because number one, they had superior tech, they had a bigger budget, and they had a very good like market understanding of how the demographics work. So this is one of the reasons why there are outliers that can there are business outliers that can really perform very well, but the thing that you have to understand is the budget amount and the machinery behind a specific business. So the first thing that you have to highlight is, where are you going to set up your business? What type of business is it, and how much capital you have? So one of the easiest businesses that can really thrive in Zambia are, number one, the real estate business and the auto industry business. So when I talk about these two specific niches, real estate, right? Houses, Airbnb, boarding houses, there is a very good opportunity right there, and it's a very diverse niche that can be broken and dissected in several segments. I'll get back to that later. So the second industry that I'm mostly interested in is obviously the auto industry, because this is an industry that I'm interacting with on a daily basis. The auto industry is also very diverse. You can start, like a taxi business, which is a younger business. You can start, a fuel transportation business by you owning like fleets of tankers. There are tipper trucks, there are garbage collection trucks, there's water bowsers, there's heavy duty machinery that you can hire out, and so on and so forth. So what I'm mostly experienced in is real estate and the auto industry, and I'm mostly inclined towards the auto industry because I interact with it, and I've got products, services that have been thriving ever since I came back to Zambia in 2022. So from 2022, I have been in the auto industry, and we've been installing GPS trackers, we've been repairing vehicles, we've been spray painting vehicles, wrapping of cars, and so on and so forth. So basically, I do have a vast understanding of how this particular business works. But enough about that. Let me give you reasons why your location specifically matters. Urbanization. If you look at Lusaka, right, it is expanding outwards because the land within the core areas of Lusaka is becoming very, very expensive. We've got, plots, or rather land allocation spaces that are going for 35,000 US dollars, 50,000 US dollars, just a simple 20 meters by 30 meters in very gated communities such as Minwood, Ibex, right? So a lot of people are running away from these prices. So what is happening is they are going outwards, and the map of Lusaka is beginning to extend and just basically diversify and grow outwards. So what this means is there's a lot of amenities that are needed and required for this particular semi-migration process, if I can put it that way, for lack of a better term. So this is one of the reasons why each particular point of expansion requires a lot. They require, shopping malls. They require proper housing facilities. They require proper transportation services, and so on and so forth. And this is one of the reasons why, if you're ever going to do business in Zambia, you have to look at these urban areas. Of course, if you go in a less developed area, the chances of you dominating the market because there's lack of competition is very high. But what is the spending power? You see, when we're doing business, we want to have a turnover of over a quarter of $1 million. We need to have that type of access to the markets, and this is one of the reasons why it's very important for you to get into a niche and in an area that can absorb your services and just basically be able to help you generate such type of income. So the auto industry, real estate is something which is going to help you make a whole lot of money. But the thing is, the issue of trust. How do you get to work with people that you can trust? So this is one of the reasons why between the two, right, real estate and the auto industry, it's very easy for you to set in place parameters that can help you understand and monitor what is happening. Let me give you an example. When it comes to the auto industry, right? Let's say, for example, you get to purchase trucks or, you know, small vehicles, aka taxis. You can easily install a GPS tracker. I know what I'm talking about because I install GPS trackers. We've installed over 1,000 GPS trackers on a lot of vehicles for a lot of companies. So it's very easy for you to monitor via a GPS tracker how many kilometers your car is doing on a day, what type of orders. It's easy for you to remotely monitor what is happening, of course, with the help of a manager, because obviously you're going to have an eye, you're going to need somebody to help you do certain things. Okay, so it's very easy for you to monitor how you're running your business in the auto industry in comparison to the real estate. Because when it comes to real estate, depending on what you're building, you're obviously going to have a bill of quantity. Let's say for example, you're building boarding houses. And by the way, the boarding house business, especially within Lusaka, is exploding because there's a lot of educational centers. We've got the areas within Silverest. I'm sure you've heard about Silverest. So Silverest is basically sort of in Chongwe and close to Lusaka, so it's basically in the outskirts of Lusaka. So this particular neighborhood has received explosive growth in the past few years because of the University of Lusaka. UNILAS is a top class university in Zambia, and therefore a lot of people have made a lot of money investing in boarding houses because there was this mass influx of students from all over Africa and within Zambia that needed good housing facilities. And this is one of the reasons why people who were in the boarding house business, they ended up making a whole lot of money. So my point was, if you are outside of the country and you are trying to build boarding houses, you have to have very, very trustworthy people handling your business, because everything is going to be overinflated for you. You're going to rely on them to check the prices, give you the prices, give you the bill of quantity, and so on and so forth. However, once the building is done, it's very easy for you to monitor, because you know the amount of rentals that you have, and you know the amount of people that are in your houses, and it's going to be very easy for you. But just for you to get to that particular process, you're obviously going to run through a lot of problems, especially with theft, and you're just going to have trust issues. But when it comes to the auto industry, it's going to be easy for you because, number one, you're probably going to purchase the vehicle, send it over to Africa, have it cleared by a clearing agency, have your registrations done, and then the business starts. So with the help of a GPS tracker, this is obviously going to be mandatory. You just simply request them to have a GPS tracker installed as soon as a clearing agent gets to it. So we provide clearing of cars that come into the country. We provide all those details. So from the get-go, you have full control and full access to what is happening to your assets. So once that is done, you're obviously going to have more data and more information on how your particular asset is going to be used. So if you look at the auto industry, real estate, of course, when it comes to security and just checking the parameters, the auto industry will provide you better comfort with the fact that you are not in the country. So you can still do real estate, but you just have to have very reliable people. And then the other thing is, when it comes to real estate, right, you're dealing with a number of people. You're dealing with the builders, the contractors, where they sell the material. You need to deal with drivers to transport your goods back and forth, and it's just honestly a big pain, in comparison to the auto industry. So when it comes to the auto industry, there are many niches that you can work on. There's a lot of need for logistic services, or services pertaining to logistics, because there's a lot of commerce and business that is being done. So if you are able to set up like a very good logistic business, I'm telling you, you can do very well. You can tap into the fuel industry. There's always need for fuel. There's a shortage of fuel. So therefore, that particular industry is a very lucrative one. So if you talk about the barrier of entry, when you talk about the auto industry, depending on what type of business you want to do, let's say for example, if you order 10 sedans or hatchbacks such as Toyota Vitz or Corollas, your barrier of entry is going to be smaller in comparison to somebody who's buying, like fuel tankers, five of them or three of them, because the barrier of entry is very different. So it just depends on what you want to do. So more of the story is, if you are ever going to invest back in Zambia, think about how you're going to be able to monitor your assets and what type of parameters you can put in place to make sure that there's transparency with whoever you are dealing with. So if you need help with either real estate or the auto industry, please let us know, because this is what we basically do, and we understand the plight of the diaspora, and basically how to make sure that you are dealing with the right people, so that you understand that your money is being used in an appropriate manner. And of course, other industries also work, like the tech world. So it just depends on what you're going to be providing in the tech industry. And for example, we are running a website called auto.zcorner.com. So I'm sure I'm going to leave the link in the description box below. So we basically sell and buy cars, and it's a marketplace for selling and buying cars. Just think of it as an Amazon, for Zambia, specifically for people who are interested in buying and selling of cars and spare parts. So this has been like a slow build up, or rather a slow business for us, because people are used to the conventional way of selling cars. They just usually list it on Facebook, and then they forget about it. They don't really want to go like to a third party website like ours, but eventually people will get used to it, and people are going to like specifically know about this particular service. So yeah, there are businesses that can work in Zambia, but the likelihood of them succeeding, especially in a short period of time, and by the way, when I say short period of time, in business terms, that means 1 to about 3 years, because a business usually takes off after 5 years, so you should have that long-term type of mindset and mentality. So yeah, in case you've got any other questions, contributions, please let me know. Our contact details are going to be all over the place. We are on Facebook. Just search for Z Corner, and then you guys are going to be able to see what we have been doing in Zambia.